Hello, living environment. So today we will be learning about microevolution and macroevolution. So first, microevolution is evolution in relation to genes or DNA in a population over time. So the root word micro means tiny. So that's why it's DNA, because as we know, DNA is very tiny. So that is why microevolution has to do with the evolution in relation to genes or DNA in a population over time. Next, we have macroevolution, which is evolution in relation to the appearance of new species and traits over time. And the root word macro means large, which is why it's a whole population or species. Alrighty, now that we know that, let's go over microevolution. See some terms. So the first term that we have is natural selection. And this is when there's an increase or decrease in certain alleles in a population. So as we know, alleles are different versions of a trait. So the different versions of a trait can increase or decrease in a certain population. Next, we have migration, which is the movement of individuals into, out of, or between populations. And this can change the frequency of different alleles or variations. So if certain individuals that have a certain trait move into a population, then the amount or frequency of different alleles can increase. But if those individuals leave a population, then that frequency of those alleles will decrease. So depending on who is in that population at that time, the frequency of certain alleles can change. Next, we have mate choice. And if parents are paired randomly, the variation will stay random. So if we randomly put things together, then they will be random. So, for example, if you randomly have a bag of M&Ms and randomly pick out colors, it will stay random. The colors that you get will stay random because you were randomly picking them. If parents are selective in choosing their mates, only favorable traits will be passed on. So let's say that your favorite M&M color is red. So you only select the red M&Ms to eat. And those are the only M&Ms that will be going into your body. So if a parent selects their mate, so they are also selecting the traits that that mate has. So those favorable traits in the mate will be passed on to the offspring. Next, we have a mutation. Mutations can change the variations, but are rare enough that it won't affect future generations. So we can have a mutation in one generation, but because they are so rare, these mutations are so rare, they probably will not affect future generations because they are so rare. And lastly, we have genetic drift. So if a specific variation becomes favored over all of the others, the whole population will start to shift towards everyone having that trait. So if, as we remember in the giraffe example, the giraffe with the longer neck had the more favored trait, and then over time, more of the offspring had those long necks because that giraffe survived and reproduced. And eventually, the whole population started to shift towards that trait of long necks. So eventually, all giraffes, as we know today, have long necks. So because that was a specific variation and it was favorable, the whole population started at future generations started getting that variation or that trait, and that trait was very more popular in the population. All right. So, an example of genetic drift. Let's have an example of this. I just gave an example, but we're going to do another one. So, we have light trees and dark trees. So how I learned how this happened, how the tree went from light trees to dark trees, was because of like the Industrial Revolution, when like factories were going and new things were being made. And so there were a lot of factories. There was a lot of like soot being let into the air, and so these trees had a lot of soot on them and turned dark. That's just what I learned throughout the years. So as you can see, the light moths, when the trees were light, were able to blend in to the light trees, but the dark moths were not. But then, as the trees got darker, the dark moths were able to blend into the dark tree, but the light moths were not. So we are going to look at the dark tree in this little picture that we have. So we have a medium gray moth first, and then there's a mutation that creates variations. So over time, there were mutations that created a lighter moth, and then it kept the medium gray moth, and then a darker gray moth. Then, because the trees got darker, the light moths that trait was unfavorable because the birds that eat the moth were able to more easily see these light-colored moths, and so they would eat those moths, and those moths would die, but the darker moths would survive and reproduce because they were able to blend into the tree better. So this is an unfavorable mutation, and it was selected against, which means that that trait did not make it to the next generations. So then, as you can see, the moths reproduce to the next generation. So you can see in the next generation, there's no white moth. There's just light gray, dark gray, and even darker gray. So now there's a new mutation that's really, really dark gray. So as it says, there's reproduction and mutation, which is this really, really dark gray. We'll just call it black. So then there was a favorable mutation more likely to survive. So even though these moths were dark, they were not dark enough. So they were still able to a certain extent, be able to be seen by the birds. So now at this point, only the moths with the dark gray and black color were able to really not be seen by the birds and survive and reproduce. Then, as you can see, there was more reproduction, and then the dark gray and black moths were the ones that survived and reproduced because they were not able to be seen as well by the birds because they were able to blend in with the dark tree. So as you can see, because these moths with the dark gray and black color had a favorable trait that helped it survive its environment, it was able to pass this trait on to future generations. Awesome. And as you can see, so at first the genetic trait was this light gray, and then over time it shifted to be this blackish color and dark gray. So the most abundant and favorable trait shifted from the light gray moths to the dark gray and black moths. So that was genetic drift. All right, next we're going to talk about macroevolution. So the first term is convergent evolution, and this is where species living in similar environments will evolve similar adaptations. And I will show you an example of this in the next slide. Next, we have coevolution, and this is where organisms that closely interact with each other will adapt to one another's existence. And I'll also show you an example of that in a second. Next, we have adaptive radiation, and this is where a species may split into two or more lines of descendants or lineages, and then splitting continues, but they originated from a single species. So there was one species, and then it split into two different species, descendants, and then it split again into other descendants, but they all have that one common ancestor. Then we have extinction, and this is when all the members of a lineage die off. We also have a few examples of extinction. Well, we actually have a lot of examples of extinction, unfortunately, in a different slide, which I will go over. It's sad because a lot of species are becoming extinct nowadays. And then we have gradualism, which is small changes over a long period of time, so small changes in traits and genes, but over a long period of time. And then we have punctuated equilibrium, which is new variations occur in one generation's time, and it's not gradual, so it happens very, very fast. So I know that was a lot of terms, but I have a lot of pictures to show you guys to help you understand that. Okay, so first we have convergent evolution and coevolution. So this top picture is convergent evolution. And so we can see that these are obviously different animals. One is a fish, a shark is a fish. The ichthyosaur is a reptile, and the dolphin is a mammal. So they're all different animals, and they're different also because they're fish, reptiles, and mammals. But as you can see, they have very similar characteristics, as you can see by the tail and the fins, as you can see here, and the little also fin. So they have very similar characteristics because they live in a similar habitat, because they all live in the water. So that's why they have similar characteristics, even though they're completely different animals. One's a fish, one's a reptile, and one's a mammal. All right. Next, we have coevolution. So we have two pretty cool examples of this. So first we have a cheetah, and we have an antelope. And so they evolved with fastness. So when the cheetah evolved to be faster, that caused the antelope to evolve to be faster, because as we know, cheetahs prey on antelopes. So the antelope had to evolve to become faster so they can outrun the cheetah and not be eaten by the cheetah. So then once the antelope evolved to be faster, the cheetahs were like, oh no, they're getting too fast. And obviously they couldn't get faster right then and there, but over time, these cheetahs evolved to be faster so they can catch up to the antelope. So it's really a back and forth process, which means that they're co-evolving. So as one changes, the other one also evolves. So as one evolves, the other one evolves, and back and forth and back and forth. Next, we have the monarch butterflies or caterpillar and the milkweed plant. So for this one, the milkweed plant is poisonous, but the monarch caterpillar has evolved, monarch caterpillar and butterfly have evolved to be able to eat this milkweed without dying. And what this results in is that the monarch butterfly is actually poisonous for birds to eat. So if a bird ate this monarch butterfly, it would die. So that actually helps protect the monarch butterfly. So that's pretty awesome. Alrighty, so then we have examples of gradualism versus punctuated equilibrium. Okay, so gradualism, as you can see, so we start off with this little snake guy, and you can see not much has changed here yet, but as you can see, we get to this generation. This generation just has spots, but this generation has spots, but then a line through it. And then this generation has bigger spots, and this generation just has the line. So that was gradual because it happened over multiple generations. So this one had dots, then this one, these two also had dots, so nothing changed there. Then this one had bigger dots, this one had the line, and then this snake had only lines, and this snake had only spots. So it happened over many generations, which is why it's gradual. Then we have punctuated equilibrium, which is when, so we can see we have this spotted snake, then we have this spotted snake, and then the next generation, there's a snake with the lines. So it happened so quickly, and it happened in one generation. So you can see in one singular generation, there was the big dotted snakes and the lined snakes. So this just happened in one generation and happened quickly. And then as you can see, the dotted was passed on to the next generation, and then the lined snake was passed on to the next generation. So punctuated means it happens fast and in one generation. Gradual means it happens over many generations, and it takes many generations for that change to occur. So here we can see it took it took 3 generations for it to occur for gradualism, and it took 1 generation for punctuated equilibrium. So awesome. All right, so as you can see, this is a very long list of the extinct animals in the last 50 years, which isn't even that long of a time, and this is such a long list. And so this means that there's not even one individual of these species. They're just completely wiped out, which is so sad. We have the Bali tiger. We have I want to see some interesting ones. We have the Japanese sea lion. We have the crescent nail-tail wallaby. We have the golden toad. We have, I think this is I'm not sure, but we have so many different ones. We have Tasmanian wolf, which that sounds really cool. The thick-tailed chub, the passenger pigeon, paradise parrot. So there's just so many species that have become extinct, which is some of humans' fault, and then some is just evolution. But yeah, it is sad, but very cool. Science is cool. All right, next we have artificial selection, which is selective breeding of organisms by humans for specific characteristics. So this is one of my favorite slides because we have some cute pictures. So many populations are controlled by humans. Again, as we saw from extinction, humans have a very big part in what happens in the world. So humans breed organisms to better suit human needs, either in agriculture or with animals. As we see, like, they breed them so they're better. So some examples are apples. So we breed apples so they can be sweeter or taste better or be bigger or be a specific color. So because we're breeding them this way, they're not what they originally were, and because we're breeding them, they are able to have these specific characteristics because we're playing with these apples genes. And then a lot of you probably have a dog. I never did, but dogs are also another example. So they're bred for size, color, jobs, such as some that I'll show you in a minute. But these dogs are bred so that they can do certain things, which I promise I'll show you in a second. Okay, so dog diversity. So we have some cute little puppies, but I have even cuter puppies in the next slide. All right, so people have lived with dogs or wolf ancestors of dogs. So fun fact, dogs are actually ancestors of wolves, so pretty crazy. Over time, people learned to selectively breed dogs by choosing certain individuals to become the parents. People have selected dogs that have various kinds of physical and behavioral traits. So today, each breed of dog is known for its appearance as well as its degree of playfulness, friendliness, watchfulness, or cleverness. Some breeds are also known for certain quirks or problems. So certain dogs might be bred. If someone wants a dog that is good, that is friendly, that is very, very friendly, and a dog maybe that is very good at guiding, then they might mate two dogs together to make a dog that is friendly and good at guiding. So I'll show you a few examples. So here are our cute little doggies. Okay, so first we have a German Shepherd, which is known to be a good guide dog. And so usually these dogs are picked as a service dog for people who are blind, or they are also used by police to like sniff out things or just help out. Next we have a Beagle. So cute. And these are good hunting dogs. So usually people who like to go hunting, they will choose these dogs to be their pet because they'll take them on hunting trips. And these dogs will be able to find certain animals or sniff out where they are. And next, oh, so cute, we have a Corgi, which these dogs are known to be very sociable and friendly. So usually people pick them out as house pets because of their loving nature. And who doesn't want to have a loving dog that you can snuggle up with? So yeah, certain dogs are picked for certain characteristics or things that they're known for. And some are also bred so that the dogs that they have can have these certain characteristics or traits. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that lecture and thought that these pictures were so cute, because they really are. But that is all for today. So I really hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and that is all. Goodbye.